Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your friend Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com. And thank you for coming to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Today I have a special guest. His name is Ken Rochon Jr. How are you, Ken?
I'm doing very well, Cesar. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Cannot wait to have this interview today. So,
you had to wait. You had to wait a little while for this.
I did a little bit. About a week or so, but it's all good. So before we get started, let me give the listeners and viewers a little bit of your background so they can get to know you. So Ken is a Renaissance man, humanitarian, and an accomplished serial entrepreneur. Establishes success with the Umbrella Syndicate, Perfect Publishing, and Absolute Entertainment. He is a social proof celebrity event photographer, international keynote speaker, and published author of 26 plus books. He is the co-founder of the nonprofit organization that Keeps Smiling Movement and previous honoree as the America's most influential business connector and entrepreneur of the year. He has traveled to 103 countries. His favorite place to be is with his son, K3, the light of his life. Ken, who lost his mother to Alzheimer's complications, desires to live a life of purpose where he leaves a legacy of love for his son to model. That is amazing. And I cannot wait to get more of you and hear more about, all these wonderful things you have going on in your life, right? Before though, I want to know about your background. Where were you born and how was it growing up as a kid?
Well, I was born in Warwick, Rhode Island, and my son just let me know that he can play something else. So he's going to play something else. So he comes over during my show sometimes to keep me informed of what he's doing in his life. But I wanted to, before I tell you that, I just wanted to acknowledge you. So, there's people in the world that are cool, and there's people in the world that can get kind of uptight. And I love cool people because, if you're running late, you can get really mad at that person, or you can choose to say, you know what, they probably did the best they could. When someone's running late, you get the opportunity to say, you know what, I can get something done I didn't have planned.
Right.
Some emails done. So I just wanted to acknowledge you because I completely blew off your show the other day, and it obviously wasn't my intention. And the reason I want to bring that up is because, you could have been, that's it, buddy.
Yeah.
You're not getting back on my show.
Right.
And I mean, it's not just that you have a great haircut. You have a great heart. You have a great smile.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
And I think this show is going to be so much better because I feel the love that you bring to the world, and I was able to experience it because you of forgiveness. I mean, it's just, you're a cool dude, man. I just want to acknowledge you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So back to your question, I was born in Warwick, Rhode Island. My dad was an Army officer, and within 2 months, I was in Paris, France. Lived an Army brat type of life, which is just traveling the world. At age 13, I came to the United States in the 70s. Didn't even know how to use a phone, believe it or not. Just everywhere I'd lived, there wasn't really a need for it. I lived in India for a year. I was the only white kid going to an Indian school. And needless to say, I grew to appreciate differences in people and cultures because when you're living in the world, you actually learn that you have a lot to be grateful for, first of all, but also that when people are different, it's actually a compliment to your life. Because if everyone's the same, you don't need anyone technically to help you. It's only when people are different.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I was going to ask you about that. Like, I can only imagine growing up in different cultures and obviously besides learning and appreciating life from a different perspective, were there any other lessons that maybe you learned through that journey of being in different cultures and with different kinds of people?
I did. When I learned a little bit about bullying, and it's funny, you know who bullies the most?
No.
Americans. like when I was on these different places, the foreigners weren't really the ones that bullied the
Yeah.
Americans. It was more the Americans bullying themselves. It was really crazy. Like you move to a new area and you get to a nice welcome from your American friends saying, okay, this is a new kid. We're going to, let them
Give
know
him a
what's
hard
up.
time. Yeah, give him a hard time. Yeah.
And so I took a real stand to anti-bullying when I did my second book. My second book is called Making Friends Around the World. I sent a copy of it because it had Spanish in it.
Yeah.
And it's an important book because I discovered several things about bullying. One is that bullies, for the most part, are bullying someone else because they don't feel like they're enough. And so they have to make someone else feel less so they can feel better. And if you teach kids like bullies that, obviously if they're loved, but if you give them skills, like you teach them another language and they go, oh my gosh, I know 2 languages. Most people only know 1. All of a sudden they feel better about themselves. Guess what stops? They stop bullying. And guess what else happens when you learn another language? You actually can't help but connect with another culture. So when you connect with a different culture, you say, you know what? Different things are actually good. Not different things are bad. So I'm a big proponent of teaching kids to actually, create something that's more leadership level so they don't feel like they have to bully.
Right. Yeah. And with that, you also start building that confidence when you're able to connect in different levels with different people, right?
Sure.
Which I think is very amazing. So when you came to the States after, traveling all over the place with your dad or your parents, what led you to become who you are now? Like, what was the journey that got you here?
Well, that's a great question that I want to answer, but sometimes you can't answer a question until you get focused. Yeah. And I have to tell you, there's a guy to your right that looks so much like you. Is that your twin brother?
Yeah, that is my twin brother. Yes, it is.
Handsome dude, man. I got to tell you. Yeah, because I keep looking over him. I'm like, there's not very many differences. He's got to be a twin. So that's pretty cool. Definitely. So when you have a dad and mom that are really loving and they care about you growing up to be something great in the world, you actually want to be like them. So my dad was an Army officer, so I went through Johns Hopkins ROTC, became an Army officer. My mom was an English teacher, so I became a science teacher. And I spent 7 years in college because I couldn't figure out how to do both of them quickly. So I did become a science teacher for 4 years, and what a reward it is to teach. And so I got to be in a school system where kids really needed someone to care about their education. And I was able to get letters from these kids all the way from all the way into high school saying that I made a difference in their science. And I think we dumbed down teaching a little too much, not to have a negative aspect of the show, but kids can handle a lot. When you believe in them, they can do wonders. So I would teach them how to think. I would teach, not most, there's a lot of teachers that have a philosophy you need to remember and memorize stuff. And I was more like, you have to apply formulas. You have to apply things that will give you answers and solve problems. And my theory about education, as well as being successful, is the more problems you can solve, the more wealthy you'll be.
Yeah.
And then the second one is the more smiles you can create and inspire, the more wealthy you'll be.
Yeah. I love that. I heard this from a guy, he's my mentor, and he said, money means money, right? And you're kind of going back to that. So when you learn to enjoy, you learn to laugh, you enjoy to just smile, you attract so many different things, into your life. And a lot of times it's not just about the money aspect. I think it's more about the connections. It's also about the people. It's about just being in a different level, because you're lifted with that smile, right? And one of the books that you wrote that I was looking over, it was very interesting, and I definitely need to look through that, where there's different types of smiles or laughs or things like that you were talking about, that has all of these different dynamics, and that's amazing. I didn't think about that from that perspective.
Well, I just wanted to say that
science of smiles. There you go. Yeah.
Any book I show in your show, Cesar, you can give away to your guest.
Oh, thank you so much.
So your audience, I want them to get a lot of value from this show, and I think the best value is to actually get a book that they can learn from. What you're referring to is the types of smiles, really a fake smile versus a genuine one. Yeah. And so a genuine smile is with your eyes. The zygotic muscles in the eyes squint because you're happy, and it shows the spirit of your soul. And you don't need to have your smile showing. You can actually see it in your eyes. So it's funny when we have masks on during COVID, you can actually see if someone's smiling because their eyes are lighting up. And so we have a gentleman named David Corbin who said, hey, you need to actually, during COVID time, tell people that a smile is spelled a little differently during COVID. Are you ready for the spelling? SM and then capital EYE as an I, LE.
Ah,
So you take the I
okay.
out and put the I in.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. No, that's awesome. Yeah, it goes back to that. Even when you're on a down moment, right? If you have a down day, or you wake up a little bit on the negative side per se, the way, if you were to just smile, just by that, the act of smiling, changing that physiology, those muscles, in the back of your mind, it changes the dynamics, right? It's going to put you in a different state of mind. And people don't realize that, some people, I won't say all of them, some people don't realize how powerful that might be, or as silly as that might seem, to just look at yourself in the mirror and smile back at you. That can change, the rest of your day. And it's hard to practice that, because I've done it in the past. And when I first started doing it, it was very hard. Now that I do it more often, it's like I stand up. I want to put a nice firm upper body, look at myself in the mirror, and just smile, right? And then just go about it that way.
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, you did such a great job with that. You could write a book just on that little piece there, I'm telling you. But inside my book, I have a little different way to explain that. And
Okay.
because the Science of Smiles is a little bit of research. This is my
Right,
very
definitely.
first research book. And so out of the first 26, the 26th was my first research book. So
Ah,
I had to have people actually help me, because research is a different type of writing, totally
right.
different type of writing.
Yeah.
So the way it's explained in the book is that when your brain says you're happy, it sends signals down to your muscles to smile. And so you form a smile.
Mm,
That makes sense. That's easy.
yeah.
But here's what you're talking about. What you're talking about is your brain is not happy. It doesn't say you're happy, but your smile, you tell your face through your
Yeah.
thoughts. You say, please smile. So your
Yeah.
muscles form a smile. What happens when you form a smile is it goes back up to the brain and says, you must be happy.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so then you start becoming happy. And
Right.
I will tell you a easy way, because you said it can be difficult, and yes, it can be, but I'll tell you an easy way to get to a smile in the morning. And I did work on this just like you. I decided my first book would be called Keep Smiling, Shift Happens, because over a 6-month period of time, I would get up in the morning, no matter what mood I was in, I would get in a better mood and shift into
Mm,
happiness. Now, what's interesting is the universe is always listening. So
yeah.
if you wake up in a bad mood, the universe says, "Oh, you want some more of that? I'll give you some bad." Okay,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but the way you can get to a smile very quickly, and it is a hack. Like everything in life, if you want to get
Yeah.
somewhere faster, learn the hack. So the hack is gratitude. So
Mm,
when you get up in the morning and say, "What do I love the most, and what am I most proud of?" And for me, it's usually my son. Don't let
mhm.
him hear it, because he's in the other
Yeah.
room. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
hey, you know what? He's doing his first book. He's being published on June 14th, his birthday, which is Flag Day,
Nice.
and
Congrats.
it's going to be Kenny's favorite joke book. He found all the favorite jokes, and he's going to make sure these are available to kids so they can laugh and learn jokes and entertain their families and their relatives more. It's a nice little
Nice.
30-page book. So
Yeah.
he
I love
worked on
it.
it for the last 3 weeks, and I'm just so proud of him. He's going to have a
Yeah.
book at age 7.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. And you talked about, I think every year, I was reading that every year you write a book on behalf of, or for your son's birthday, right? That's one of
I
your
do.
kind of traditions or things. And it goes back to what you mentioned, kind of leaving that legacy, or leaving something behind, or creating a difference in his life for sure, so that he can see how connected you are, which I think, that's besides that being very fulfilling, and I'm sure it's very fulfilling for you. It comes really from that nature and natural love, and being able to give back. And again, when you're gone from this place, you have something to leave behind. And I can kind of relate to that in a different aspect. When I wrote my first book, is like I wanted to leave something behind for my daughter, that she can go back and look at my grandkids, whatever the case may be, right? And so that's very amazing.
Well, thank you, and you certainly get it, because this will be the first book, the one he's doing, where my name is altered. So my name is usually Ken Rochon Jr.
Hmm.
So it says, for this book, it says Kenny K3 Rochon the third, and then it says underneath small print, it says "and Daddy."
That's awesome.
So I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess Amazon's going to be putting me down as Daddy, as
Yeah,
a
right. And,
co-author.
there you go. So if you want to, you can go and search for Daddy and see what comes up. Right, it'll be your book, that book for
Well,
sure.
I want to actually share something about this philosophy I have, because
Hmm.
writing a book to my son, there's 2 aspects to it. So
Okay.
one aspect is I had a child rather late in life. It wasn't my design, but that's what happened. So I met my wife. We had a little hard time having a child. And when we finally had a child, I'm like, holy heck,
Yeah.
I may not live 30 years. I may not live 20. I don't know how many years. So I said, he may not know me when I do pass if I'm not planning on passing. So I'm going to start downloading my heart and my mind. So every single time I write a book, I say, there's usually some part of the book that says, hey, if I'm not here, these words are to share with you my wisdom, but also tell you how much I love you.
Wow.
So every single book has something in there about that.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm sharing this is I want to encourage and inspire your listeners that when you leave, there's so many secrets you take with you. And the secrets of how much you love the person or what you had to go through to take care of the person and how much they meant to you, they go bye-bye. And it's sad because it's in your heart. It was never not in your heart. The problem is it was never just taken from your heart and turned into communication. Because my son, I only have to do this right here, Cesar. And he says, I love you too. Because he says, you say it a million times. I said, well, tell you what, Kenny, so I don't know, say it so many times. I'll sometimes just point and then he'll go, I love you too, Daddy. So, but writing one book for the people you love, and let's say you print one copy, that will be probably the most important book they could receive in their entire world, entire life. So it doesn't take a lot to do a book. And, I'm happy to always help people create a legacy for their kids. And some of the things I've done, if I don't have them handy, but I'll just say that I'll send them to you. I think I sent some of them to you. You can send them to your audience. And if they want to do books, I'm happy to help them.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's awesome. In terms of the other thing you were talking about, education, I want to tap into that because I think that there's different forms of education. And sometimes, people say, well, I'm not, college is not for me. And then they kind of just throw that whole idea out of the door, right? I believe that there are different types of education. And one of them, you obviously are doing really good, which is writing books, educating people through your books, through your writing, being able to get more knowledge out into the world and being able to empower people in that manner. What is your belief when it comes down to, obviously, a former teacher, your belief on education, whether it's traditional or non-traditional?
Well, I think there are so many intelligences, and you have to actually hone most of them. I think street intelligence is probably, and social intelligence are the two most important, because if you get along with people and you know how to work with people, I think magic happens all the time. I mean, I've met some extremely successful people, considerably more successful than me, that tell me they left school when they were third grade or second grade or fourth grade, whatever. And I think they can command the English language to enough to get the job done, but they're not scholars. And I think that if you don't have money, be careful about taking student loans, because there's a lot of evidence that you are probably getting in debt and you may not actually have a life you love. So choose the type of education that actually serves you and serves the planet and creates some type of purpose or passion for you. So there's things called community colleges. I'm a big advocate. I went to 4 community colleges. I took 13 languages in one of them. These are post college. I went back, and so I wasn't happy with my grades to be a science teacher. So I went back and took a lot of science classes and got A's in them. And so I was more proficient in teaching chemistry and physics. And school's expensive. Yeah. It can be. And so if you're not prepared to pay the money for it, I just think you should go to community colleges and continue to learn. There's lots of ways to learn. As you know, there's books. But I think having a degree is an accomplishment, and I think it's worth going for, but you don't have to have it with an Ivy League or some place that maybe puts you in massive debt.
Yeah. One of my opinions that changed throughout my journey is that I have a master's in business administration, so I'm a big advocate when it comes down to education and definitely promote that 100%. The only one shift that I had in my own personal life is that that now I see things a little bit different. If I'm gonna go back to school to get a degree, because I always often see people misconstrue the meaning of that. They're like, I got to go back to school, get a degree so I can get a good job and get more money and get more pay, right? And that was kind of my mentality. I mean, really, the reason why I went through all that journey is like, I wanted to get a degree so I can get a better job in corporate America and get more money. Yet I realize now that if I go back to school, I don't want to be able to have the attachment of me getting that degree that equates to more money or a better job. Now, if I go back to school, I want to go back to school as a self-accomplishment, something that I feel good about, something that I appreciate. And it's really that. It comes down to that, because then from there, I think more things open up instead of thinking about, I wanted for, again, more money or a better job. And that's one thing that changed, at least my philosophy and my idea going through my own journey, right?
Well, likewise. And there's so many studies about how many people do what they studied, and it's very few. I mean, it's a deplorable number, like 20%. Yeah. And so they get this great degree and they said, you know what, I'm not happy. I did medical illustration for 5 years in college.
Mm.
In my very final year, sixth year, I was like, this is so boring. I don't want to do it. So
Yeah.
I stopped. I stopped cold turkey. I said, now I got to go back and get an education degree so I can teach.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, wow. So tell me about the nonprofit movement. How did that come about? How did you get involved with the Keep Smiling movement?
Well, as you had mentioned earlier, losing my mom in 2008, I was a
Yeah.
caregiver for 3 years,
Mm.
and I had an entertainment company that was flourishing. It was successful, but it was a workaholic lifestyle,
Yeah.
materialistic lifestyle. It
Yeah.
was a very ego-centric lifestyle. Me, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
and I kept and I was never happy, but I was enjoying life. Let's just put it that way. But I
Yeah.
was never truly happy, because being happy means you have you are actually creating something good in the world. I think that
Yeah.
makes you the happiest.
Yeah.
So when I was a caregiver, it jolted me that the hero of your life can be taken. And my
Mm.
mom was my biggest fan. She always said, whenever I thought, I want to do this, she goes, "You can do it. You can do it." And she had a quote that I just absolutely would love to share
Hmm.
about a great way of living life is, there's always faults with people because there's no one that's perfect. So she always said, find the good in people. No, look for the good in people and you always find it.
Mm.
Look for the good in people, you always find it. Because if you look for the bad, it's just like when you wake up in the morning, if you're in a bad mood, guess what the universe says? Let me give you some more bad. So
Right.
if you look for the good in people, and I can tell you do that, Cesar. And so that's exactly what you get. You get the good out of people.
Yeah.
And so she taught me that at a very young age, like 12 years old. And I've applied it my entire life, and it's made a big difference. But after that, I thought God was going to help me. I said, "Hey, God, my mom just died. Tell me what I'm supposed to do with my life now. I'm going to give up DJing. I'm going to give up, being a workaholic. I want a purpose-driven life. Can you tell me what to do?" And he didn't tell me. I couldn't believe it. I, I mean, I was like, this is like the real deal. I'm really
Yeah.
giving my life to Christ and to God. Please tell me. So anyway, to make a long story short, for 7 years, I was determined to find out how to create a purpose-driven life. And there were steps I was taking that were getting closer. But when Barry Shore handed me a Keep Smiling card,
Yeah.
it was kind of like that moment in the Blues Brothers when he sees the light and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
James Brown singing. He goes, "I see the light. I see the light." Well,
Yeah.
I saw that Keep Smiling card, and I said, "I love this message, and I think this is what I'm supposed to do with my life: is create a movement that celebrates smiles, celebrates leaders that cause smiles, and just focus on happiness and positivity." And I said, "This is going to drive me." And also, as a dad, it was the
Yeah.
perfect thing to bring home to my son. Like, you know what your daddy's going to do, Kenny? I'm going to
Yeah.
create a Keep Smiling movement.
Yeah. Well, no, that's amazing. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And I got a chance to meet Barry. He's definitely a very positive person, and I
You think?
love. Yeah. Yeah. I really love. I love the conversation I had with him. So that's amazing. So talking about this movement, you've written so many different books. So what has been one of your biggest accomplishments in going through that, in doing the books and really touching so many different people at multiple levels in life?
Well, I have two times. One was my first book, and
Mm.
then I think you may have heard that I've helped 100 people do a book in 1 year. So that's my second, and
Yeah.
they're both equally hard actually. So the
Yeah.
first book, most people don't have a book because of fear. They don't have a book because they don't know how to do it. They have a book because of uncertainty, and so they don't. And so there's a book that we created called "Make a Book, Move a Book, Book a Sale," and the book is about the odds, like the
Mm.
odds of you doing what you really want. So if you have 100 people in a room and you say, and they're all professionals, mind you, so they're
Mm.
all educated professionals. How many of you would like to do a book? Do you have any idea how many would say yes?
I would say probably 10%.
No, actually, it's very high. 85% want to. No, want
Mm.
to. Want
Want to?
to.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So, and now the 85, how many actually will do it?
Very little. Like
Very,
that 10%. Yeah, I
way,
would
way,
say.
way less, 1% or two.
Wow. Okay.
It's really low. I know
Wow.
this because I study science and math,
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
can't get enough data. So I did this test. I said, hey, if I help you do a book, because if I can help someone do a book, two things happen. I make a friend, and then I also become better at helping people.
Yeah.
So I become an expert, and I can open a publishing company. So I opened up a publishing company, and I decided I would do my first 10 books with people for free.
Mm.
These are people that I was qualifying, filtering. Only one did it.
Wow.
And this is me not charging, by the way. I just need to
Yeah.
make that clear. It was not money holding them back. I
Yeah.
said, I need proof of that my system works. So I had to redefine a system. But getting back to your question, my first book was a catastrophe. It was called Becoming the Perfect Networker, Succeeding One Connection at a Time. I spent $20,000. It had 42 grammatical errors. I ordered 2,000 copies, $20,000, and I sold something like 11. I mean, insane low. So I basically lost all my money. And it was very, very difficult for so many reasons. First of all, I had a platform, 11,000 people on a platform, and they all were saying, I can't wait to get your book. So 11,000, I said, 10% I'm going to sell. So that's 1,000. The other 1,000 I can sell, and I'm getting this better deal by ordering 2,000, so I'll get 2,000. So it was a very, not only eye-opening experience, it was a soul experience of, is this what I'm supposed to do? And there was really a question. Do I quit and throw in the towel and say, you learned your lesson, it was an expensive one? By the way, this is all credit card, by the way. This was credit card. Yeah, credit card.
Gotcha.
So to fix the book and to re-release the book without the errors in it, 42 grammatical errors. My mom was an English teacher who had passed because of Alzheimer's. My dad was a speechwriter at NSA, National Security Agency. Brilliant wordsmith, but he was so busy and consumed with my mom's caregiving, he couldn't help me either. So the two people that were like perfect for editing were not available. So I had to spend about $3,500 to redo the book, reprint the book, and it took off. Fortunately, but it was because of marketing. It was because really becoming committed to a plan. And I'll just share that most people that do a book, unfortunately, their books don't do too well because they don't have a marketing plan.
Right.
And since you've done a book, you'll relate to this a lot.
Yeah.
Bringing a book in the world is like bringing a child in the world. If you don't feed the book and you don't feed the child, they're going to die. So most people bring a book in the world and they go, check, I did it. Yay. Let me see how many sales come in, and almost none come in. So don't do a book to get rich, but do a book to make an impact in the world. And if you market it and you're committed to it like you're committed to a child, you will actually be very successful with your book, period.
I love that. And that's actually a good point. Don't make a book to make money, to make a difference, do with that. And I think that's really with anything, right? It comes down to whatever you do, whatever the industry you're in, or the people that are listening to this is going to come down to that. You have to be passionate and do it for that, not for the money. And one thing that I can relate to that when you were talking about why people don't write a book, I myself were faced with that, where I was, I had all this self-sabotaging ideas or thoughts, and saying the fear, right? The fear of who's going to read your book. You're not a writer. You don't like to read. Like all these things were coming into mind. And I'm like, but I don't like to read. The last time I read was in high school, and I only did because my English teacher made me read a book for that class. And I'm like, let alone don't like to read. I'm not a writer. Who's going to read it? So all these things came to mind. And that's the fear that can stop anybody from doing anything, not just the book, anything in life. And for me, I ended up saying, you know what, let me change the frame of this. Let me do it differently. And at that point I said, you know what, I'm not writing this book, going back to your point, to make money. I'm writing this book because I want to make a difference on somebody's life, one person, if that's all it takes. Number two, I'm writing it because I want to leave something behind for my daughter. And when I changed that frame, the negative thoughts were disappearing. And then I started writing, and now I feel like I'm happy that I wrote the book. And as I mentioned to you earlier, now I have it in Spanish too, because I want to be able to get to more people and that make that impact. So again, don't let fear take away the opportunity. That's what I tell people. Make sure you just don't let fear take away the opportunity, for sure, And
you're going to be an author with our Keep Smiling book.
Yeah, definitely. So that's going to be another interesting a journey for me, for sure.
You may be the first one to do a book that doesn't have English on the cover. We have 112 Keep Smiling books. Your audience can get this copy for free. I sent it to you.
Yep.
And it has 100 here because it has 100 different authors with the books that they actually did. So in the corner, it shows the actual Keep Smiling book. And I think I said this already, but this is my favorite, the bald one.
You did.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because all the bald people that are, I don't know if anyone in your audience has this great haircut, but I mean, that's
right. It's the best haircut. It is.
People that are bald, they are bold and they are beautiful, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like when I saw my haircut, I was like, there's no excuse for you not to write a book.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I did this about a year ago, and I said, let me just go with this new look, and I love it. I definitely, I feel better. Anyways, more to that. That's a different story.
So your twin did the same thing, I see.
Yeah, he did the same thing. We went to the same barber. So yeah, no, definitely. Now let's talk about so we talked about what inspired you to write the books. I want to know a little bit about your story about this 103 or 130 different countries you've been to.
103, yeah.
Yeah. So can you give me more about some of the things you've learned through that? Because I think there's a lot of things you learn. I mean, I got to get to that level where I can go to that many countries. The place that I've been to is taught me on how to appreciate life from a different perspective and be more humble too, from that.
Right.
What is your
Totally.
experience?
Well, first of all, if you want to get to more countries, I'd like to visit how I came up with this crazy idea. So when I was 39, I made a decision. Hey, here you are, 39. You haven't been to any country since you were a kid. And your perspective of what a country is when you're a kid is not what it is as an adult. So I forced myself to buy a digital camera, and I wrote down, and when you declare something, it changes who you are to the universe. So I said, I declare that I will write my first book by the age of 40. No, before I'm 50. I declare that I will do 100 countries before I'm 50. And I declare I will have a child. And here's what's weird.
All of that has come through.
But the hardest one was the child. That was the hardest one. That's supposed to be the easy one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Like I didn't say a child that's a boy, or a child that's a girl, or a child
just a
that,
child.
or the child that is, a certain ethnicity. I just said a child.
Yeah. Wow.
And so that was the hardest one. We had that child just before I was 50, actually. Just before. So that was the one I was cutting it close. And at 9 years, 6 months, I finished my 100th country. So I'd like to give you the hack, because I'm a big hack person, on how to get to 100 countries. So what you do is you have 100 countries, let's say you want to get to. That's called a centurion, someone that's been to 100. And you find a travel agent that hopefully can become a friend. That's what I looked for. And fortunately, one of my best friends was a travel agent, and he had been to 25 cruises. And I asked him, what's some advice? And it's just like if you want to write a book, hang with some authors. But if you want to travel a lot of countries, find a travel agent you can bounce some ideas off. But don't go to a travel agent that sells trips. Go to a travel agent that goes on trips. Like, there's a big distinction there, because one will tell you the experience and how to do it right. The other one will just sell you what is the best deal. So they will tell you how to save money. So for instance, I only had to come up with $500, nothing crazy, down as a deposit. And I had 1 year to come up with, let's say, $3,000 more. I hopped on a cruise, went to the Mediterranean, and I got to spend, 1 day in Venice, 1 day in Rome, 1 day in this, 1 day in that. And it didn't matter how many cities I went to, but I invested in a book called The Top 10 Things You Had to See in This Country. And I had a rule. Number one rule was I had to be in the country at least 4 hours. That's minimum. Not at an airport, in the country.
Yep. Outside. Yep.
Okay. I had to have a digital camera to prove my experience, and I had to see either the number one thing in that country, or I had to see 3 of the top 10. So if I didn't see the number one thing, I could see 3 of the top 10, and I had to prove it with my camera.
Yep.
Those are my rules, and everyone can make their own rules. Some people's rules, if I go to that airport, I'm in that country, it counts. I think that's bogus, so I don't do that. So the reason I had to do 4 hours is because on a cruise, sometimes you only get 4 hours on land. And so you find the most aggressive tour that you can go to. Like when I went to Egypt, for instance, we only had, 6 hours, 8 hours. I had to pay $400 for machine gun. And I went to the pyramids, obviously. I went to the top 3 things in Egypt. And when I came back to the ship, I was like, this is unbelievable.
Wow.
I have photos as if I was here for 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Photos are a lot,
and so there's an inverse of money and time. So the shorter the time you're there, the more money you may have to spend, but then you really experience the country. So don't go into a country that you only have 1 day in and say, I'm going to save money and I'm going to go, get a beer and just chill.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
If you want to be the centurion traveler, if you want to just chill, that's your deal. But my encouragement is to find out the culture, really see the sites, but most importantly, get that top 10 and find out how many of them you can knock out, so that you can actually say, I was at that country. I was there.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to the Leaning Tower of Pisa, I'm telling you, that's way different. Or the Eiffel Tower, it's way different than just seeing it in the picture. Or the Grand Canyon.
I have, yes.
Is it different than a book? I mean,
Oh yeah,
Jiminy Christmas.
definitely it is. Definitely it is. Yeah, and
Yeah.
but that's one of my journeys that I want to do is get to as many countries as I can. So I was in Europe 4 years ago, and my Facebook reminded me of the place that I've been to and where I went to, and I remember having a dinner at the Eiffel Tower, and so like
Yeah.
it's those moments that like wow, like that wow factor. So
Wasn't that a pincher? Wasn't that kind of a pinch yourself moment to be
yeah,
in the
yeah,
Eiffel Tower
yeah.
having dinner? That is
Oh yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
no,
did
it's
that too.
it's definitely awesome, and again, you learn to know more about other cultures and just appreciate and just see what what really the world's all about, right? It's not just this one little place that we think and we're enclosed. I mean, we got to be able to. I think you got to be able to enjoy as much as you can while you're in this journey called life, and you gotta just take your vehicle, your body, and do things that are great, for yourself. So
Can I give you three more little short
yeah.
hacks? Real short hacks. So, number one is when you go into a country and you're by yourself, make sure you're doing your social proof. Make sure you're reading the reviews of a travel agent, because a travel agent that gets tons of 5-star reviews, they're probably super honest. They want them. They want to earn them. So no matter what you're paying them, they're going to make sure they earn that 5-star reviews. That's one. Number two is whenever you go into a country, look at the borders around it and see if it's feasible to hire a taxi, which, believe it or not, the taxis are typically extremely safe in most countries. Africa is an exception and South America is an exception, but in most other countries, it's extremely safe. And it doesn't take too much to read the person and see that you're in good hands. But I've gone into Eastern Bloc countries with taxi drivers and been totally fine. They just want to make their money and take care of you. So, but if you're near another country, you can hop over and spend, like I said, 4 hours and experience that country, and boom, check off. And yet it cost you maybe $200 more, $300 more, and you saw a whole other country. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a cool one. And then the other one about the travel agent is when you ask a travel agent, hey, if you can tack a day or two before and attack a day or two after before I come back from my cruise, should I go? Where can I knock out another country? What can I do that will, and by the way, the good news about those two things is you don't have flight stress. Because when you fly in the day before and your flight gets canceled, you miss your whole cruise. So if you go a couple days early, you're going to avoid that. And we're talking an extra $400, maybe $800 to $1,000, but it's nothing so crazy. But I was able to see Lisbon. I was able to see some really amazing countries because I had those 2 days on both sides deal, which is really a fun thing.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I did. When I went to Europe, I did 3 days before doing a cruise in Rome, and I got to explore all over Rome. For 2-3 days, it was pretty awesome. And then after my cruise, I ended up in Spain, and then I head down to France, and so I had a couple of days, before and after, and it was just awesome, right? You get to explore more from that aspect. So definitely, that's something that I love. So I got to pick your brain more down the line for that.
Yeah, well, there's one more thing I'd like to say is when you're traveling that far, obviously there's a time zone.
Yeah.
And so if you go a couple days early and you don't feel like you have energy, at least you get to sleep a day before you go on the cruise instead of
yeah, you do exactly. Or I'm in the West Coast, so it takes a good 10 hours to go from here, 10 to 11 hours to go from here to Rome. So you can sleep on the plane too.
Right. Well, I don't know how to sleep on planes. There's something wrong with my genes.
Okay.
I'm serious. If I'm sitting, I can't sleep. But last thing I'll just share, because of the waste of money, is always make sure your passport will get you where you want to go. Because if you get blocked, you can actually have your whole messed up. My wife was going to Europe, and she didn't have one of her passports, and so they found out a day before we couldn't go. And we didn't have insurance either, which was really a double hit. So making sure your passport. And there was one last thing: when you get to a new country, pay whatever it needs to be eating food that's American and authorized food. Because if you get sick before a cruise, you don't get to go on the cruise either. You have to be well. So
Gotcha.
just spend the extra money, go to the Marriott, whatever. You can do whatever after the cruise, but you can
not before that. Yeah, that's gonna take you to the different countries. So you want to be on that cruise.
Yeah, don't experiment like those Food Network people do.
Yeah,
because you might end up getting pretty sick.
No, definitely. So, Ken, I have a couple more questions for you before I let you go.
Don't let me go. No, don't ever let me go.
I won. So, with everything going on, I'm curious to know, how do you define success?
I define it as being happy. That's simple. And I think that abundance is happiness, and happiness is abundance. If you look at a person on the street who's homeless and he's happy, he's abundant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I teach my son to be grateful, and I can't wait to take him traveling because, as you said before, you learn there are definitely different lives to live.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. I love that. And then if people wanted to know more about your book or how they can be part of that, where can they find you or how can they connect with you?
They go to your website. No,
Yes. Yes, and we'll have all that information for sure.
But there's a new group called it's facebook.com, The Keep Smiling Ambassadors. And we are giving away tons of books during National Keep Smiling Week. And by the way, we want to honor you on International Keep Smiling Week, which is in October, as one of our books that's in a different language, and it will be subtitled in English. But I'm so excited you may be the first person to wake the world up with Siga Sonriendo.
Siga Sonriendo. Yes. Love it. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so then definitely I'm going to have that information here. And the last question I have for you, if anybody that's listening to us is going through a challenging time, whatever that might be right now, what is one tip or some things they can do so they can overcome that challenge?
Can I say two real quick?
Yeah, as many as you want.
Okay, so these books, again, have somebody that was in your place. Every one of these people have gone through a lot of adversity, and I chose them because they didn't just become this big person overnight. They had to go through a lot of crap. And so these are called A Dose of Hope. They take about 10 minutes to read, and they will shift your mentality of, golly gee, I know somebody who had it worse than me, and they made through it. I can do it too. So that's the first one. The second one is we have something called a Keep Smiling template, and anyone that's going through a tough time, we do scholarship, these templates to be given to people that are going through a tough time so they can work through. It's very therapeutic, and it gets people's mind into the gratitude mode. And then when they get committed to obviously doing a book and everything, they shift themselves into being a leader. So those are my two solutions.
Awesome. Well, I love that. Well, Ken, thank you so much again for being here. Before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to say?
I just want to talk for one more hour, maybe two.
We can definitely do it. I have nowhere to go.
Well, actually, I just want to say thank you. This was a lot of fun talking with you.
Yeah.
I am going to go play with my son after this, but I told him this is a really important show. So thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. So
and not forgetting again.
And not forgetting this time. Yeah, thank you. The most important thing, not forgetting this time. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. For the rest of you guys, thank you for tuning in. Please make sure you check us out. Leave us some comments. Share this video. Is definitely a really good video. And please make sure that you check us on all platforms and stay tuned to the next episodes of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Have a good day.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.